Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, a safe place for leading with your heart. Hey, thanks for being here. You, Me, Empathy is the official podcast of the Feely Human Collective, a collaborative mental health community designed to empower each of us to grow our capacity for empathy, vulnerability, and emotional wayfinding. Just a friendly reminder that this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. No one is just a silly boy with a feely heart. You can support the show by leaving a review in Apple Podcasts, following us on social media at Yumi Empathy and Feely Human, and joining the Feely Human Collective community at feelyhuman.co. And now your host, Known Wells.
Hello, Feely Humans. Welcome to another episode of your favorite mental health podcast, Yumi Empathy. This is episode 168 on the silence, stigma, and shame in miscarriage with Dr. Jessica Zucker. My name is Known Wells, and I'm your host and creator of Yumi Empathy and the Feely Human Collective at feelyhuman.co. And I'm so grateful to be here with you today. Today on the show, Jessica Zucker and I. Jessica is a psychologist and author of the new book, out tomorrow, in fact, called I Had a Miscarriage, a Memoir, a Movement. I read it. It's beautiful. It's about trauma and shame and stigma that exists in the world of motherhood and pregnancy and infant loss. It's powerful, it's moving, it's eye-opening, and I highly, highly recommend you pick it up for anyone, even if you're not someone who has children or intends to have children. Like myself, I'm a cisgendered male person biologically who cannot have children, out of my own womb, and I still think it's a powerful read that you need to read. So it's available for pre-order right now. Highly recommend you pre-order it. It's out tomorrow. I have links to her book, I Had a Miscarriage, in the show notes for this episode at feelyhuman.co. So we talk a lot about the book. We talk a lot about stigma and shame in pregnancy, the jaw-dropping statistics of miscarriage we're not talking about, and a whole lot more. Before we get to the episode, though, I wanted to just remind you that you can find all the show notes for this podcast, Yumi Empathy, at feelyhuman.co. That's feelyhuman.co. And at that same website, you can sign up for the Feely Human 101 workshop. I'm looking for new writers for the journal, so go to feelyhuman.co and check out the journal link on the top in the navigation. I also have a shop if you want to buy some stickers, some pins, some t-shirts. All of that supports me and the work I do. And speaking of support, I also have a Patreon page at patreon.com/feelyhuman, where you can spend $5 a month and you get an extra bonus episode of this podcast every month. And then there are various other reward tiers from there. Check it out. That's at patreon.com/feelyhuman. And again, the website is feelyhuman.co. The last thing I'll say is I'm 2 months sober, which feels great. 2 months was maybe a day or two ago. That feels great. And I'm grateful. And I've been reading some good books lately. In addition to I Had a Miscarriage, My Inner Sky, with my previous guest, last week's guest, Mari Andrew, is wonderful. Of course, Kate Flanders' book, Adventures in Opting Out, I read recently. That is wonderful. The Beauty of What Remains by Rabbi Steve Leder is a beautiful book that I highly recommend. And I just started reading. I'm not too far into it, but it's a book to add to your to read list in the future. It's called Know Your Endo by Jessica Murnane. That's coming out in April, I believe, so check that out. Just some book recommendations. Isn't that fun? But thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. I truly am so grateful for your presence, your heart, and keep being you, truly. There is so much power and strength in knowing ourselves and recognizing what lights us up. We know ourselves best, It's not anyone else. It's not culture. It's not, the pull for, wanting to be someone else or wanting to be just like someone else or compete with someone else. It's really us. It's like we know ourselves best. Hold on to that and keep exploring and be curious about that, because that is where the real juice happens. That's where the real source of empathy and connection and healing comes from, is that knowing journey and honoring what we know, and honoring ourselves. Sometimes it's hard because boundaries have to be in place. Sometimes it's hard because certain people in our lives don't want to see us thrive or grow, or they don't want us to change, right? But the truth of the matter is we know what's best for us, and that's the journey. So keep holding on to that. Keep, leading with your heart, feeling your feelings, being curious about your emotions, allowing yourself the time and space and energy to be in those pockets of vulnerability and gray and uncomfortableness, because that's where the richness happens. Okay, so we can't do it every day. Some days we just need to, sit on the couch and watch The Good Place for the 7th time, or whatever. So, but, it's a journey. So, and baby steps are important too. And you're important to me for listening. So thank you for being here. Again, you can support me at feelyhuman.co or on Patreon, patreon.com/feelyhuman. And please leave a rating and review for the podcast in Apple Podcasts. It does truly help out the show. If you like the show and you haven't left a review, please do so. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. And let's get to the episode. This is episode 168 with Dr. Jessica Zucker on the silence, stigma, and shame in miscarriage.
La la la, you, me, empathy, yeah, la la la.
Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, the official podcast of the Feely Human Collective. On this show, we explore the struggles, the triumphs, the brights and the darks we face as humans trying to get by on this wondrous and overwhelming pale blue dot. The intent of You, Me, Empathy is to talk openly, without judgment, about our mental health, our neuroses, our shared anxieties and worries, to create a dialogue that is vulnerable and deeply human and empathetic, and to share that dialogue with others to inspire emotional and cognitive collaboration and insight, so we can, hand in hand, break down the stigma that make us feel shame and guilt for struggling, for feeling our feelings, for being feely humans. You, Me, Empathy is a safe, friendly space designed to inspire the beauty in each of us. Today, I'm honored to be here learning with LA-based psychologist specializing in reproductive and maternal mental health, creator of the I Had a Miscarriage campaign, and author of the new book of the same name, I Had a Miscarriage, a memoir, a movement. It's Jessica Zucker. Hello.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm so happy
to be here with you.
Very honored to have you. I am in awe of the work that you're doing. I'm grateful for the work that you're doing, and I'm happy to be talking to another feely human.
I sure am. I've never put it that way, but I love the way you put that. That's great.
Good.
Yeah.
Well,
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Let's start with an emotional check-in. We always start with an emotional check-in. How are you feeling?
I feel hopeful today. I'm excited. I'm a little giddy. I feel grateful that today isn't yesterday. Yesterday was not as smooth. But yeah, with the book on the horizon, I just I have darting, excited thoughts about putting this all together and how it may or may not be received in the world. Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll pause and I'll answer that in a second, but I'll just say, like, to put a book out into the world and get it published, I mean, what a feat that is in and of itself. So kudos.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's interesting. I sort of toggle between feeling immense pride and sort of enjoying and embracing the vulnerability around all of it, and so grateful that I somehow carved out the time to do it amidst this crazy world and having children underfoot and a career. And then other times I'm a little like harder on myself, thinking like, what is this going to do anyway? And why did I undertake something so intense and arduous? So yeah, it's interesting.
Have you discovered any answers to a couple of those questions?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just tend to run hard on myself. And so, when I think like, wow, have I really put like 2+ years into this? And is it what I wanted it to be? I think the resounding answer, like majority of the time, is yes. And I think I have to try to lean into that rather than running after the thoughts that are that could easily steal that, and to somehow minimizing how much work I've done in this area. Yeah,
and you have done tremendous work. I'll be open with the listeners. I've read the book. It's wonderful. I read it in a day and a half.
Wow.
And I kind of was thinking about my reading of it and took a moment and said, like, hey, maybe it would have been a little better to like have moments of pause here and there and not have to kind of feel like I had to rush it. Although I didn't feel that, I just wanted to finish. But it's a beautiful work, and I relate to the almost like wanting to sabotage or like put up protective measures before we put the thing out into the world. It's like, that's such a human thing, right?
I mean, I think it's particularly human if you were raised by humans who didn't sort of honor you from the inside out from the get-go. So I think like as we grow into adults, we're going to do to ourselves what our parents did to us first and foremost. I mean, until we don't, hopefully. But so I think there's sprinkles of that. But yes, of course, I think there's a lot of self-doubt in most people when they're birthing something major. Yeah.
Did you feel that support from your parents or no?
About the book or in life?
In life, the honoring you from the inside out.
From the get-go? It's a very important and complex question. I want to say yes, but I will say more likely no. And of course, nothing is black and white. So there was a lot of emotional space for me vis-a-vis my father, but not so much with my mother.
Yeah.
And that's really, I think it's interesting because I'm thinking about how to talk to my family about parts of the book before it comes out. And as you probably noted, the chapter about my parents is the shortest. And that chapter had many iterations, and I knew that to save myself emotionally, it was just smarter to go with the chopped down version. But it's clear from from that chapter that my mom and I have struggled, and so it shouldn't have been surprising to me that we struggled after my miscarriage as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a cisgendered man who can't, biologically have children. But there was a moment in your book where you're describing like that, brief fight you had with your mom after the miscarriage, and you wanting to, can't you see me? And it was like, you can't see. And I so feel for that. I got a little weepy reading that moment, because it's, that's something I've had in my own life with my mother. And it's something that is difficult when there are people in the world, parents or otherwise, who aren't doing the work, or aren't, haven't developed the capacity to be curious about the complexity of our emotions and all of that stuff. It's difficult when it's like we're playing different games sometimes.
Completely. Yeah. Sometimes I try to conceptualize it, and I don't mean to put down like teenagers or toddlers by any means, because I have sort of both at my house. But when an adult seems to be sort of functioning at a level, let's say, of defensiveness or concreteness that resembles someone younger, it's very confusing and befuddling. And I think that when you grow up with that, you can't not turn it in on yourself. Like, oh, it must be something that I'm doing. Oh, I have too many needs, or I'm being difficult, or if I would have just been more like this, X, Y, and Z would have happened instead. And, it's sad for people to grow up like that. But it's interesting, because when you just asked me that question, I could answer it. So throughout my childhood, I just answered the question from that lens. But I'm finding there's some anxiety about the fact that the book is about to come out, vis-a-vis them as well.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure they really, my parents really understand my work, even though I think it's simple to understand. I'm a psychologist. I specialize in women's reproductive and maternal mental health, and I've done so since way before experiencing a 16-week miscarriage at home by myself. And I've been writing for years as well. So I don't really get how they don't get that. Basically, I went through this harrowing, life-threatening experience that then further informed my professional, my personal life. I mean, when I think of my kids, and when I think of, them going through, hopefully not, but inevitably something difficult in their lives, and then turning that into helping others through similar things, like that seems like a dream come true.
Oh yeah.
But in the context of my family, I'm not sure they see it that way. Yeah.
That's hard. I feel you. And it makes sense, right? Like you talk about in the book, silence and stigma and shame. And these are things that exist in so much of our culture, right? And, as it pertains to you and the work you do, very explicitly, these things are adding so many layers of complexity and, doors that people need keys to unlock. And those keys mean, a willingness to be uncomfortable, or a willingness to ask questions, or a willingness to level up our skills of empathy and compassion. And, but there's, as you point out so beautifully in the book, there's so much of that stigma and silence and shame that not just exists as external forces, they exist as internal forces as well. So you're just dealing with all this, like all these forces that,
mess.
It's a mess. It's so hard.
Yeah. It is. And it's interesting. I mean, what I found to be the most helpful and like kind of buoyed me through the aftermath of my experience were people who I didn't know in real time, which I mean, I think says a lot, but also says a lot about how robust the pregnancy and infant loss community is online. Right.
Yeah.
So like, I knew theoretically that that October was Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month, for example. But until this happened to me and I was on Twitter and on, social media and seeing all of the incredible support that people were generously giving out there, it wasn't until then that I realized, wow, there is community, even though there is the kind of overarching silent stigma and shame. When we hear stories reflected back to us that are similar, or not even the details of the stories, but the feelings.
Yep.
That is when we feel seen and heard and validated and comforted and, free to be fully vulnerable, to be fully in our truths.
Yeah. Can you walk me through, I know you share about it in the book, but for the listener's sake, a little bit about your own personal story and experience with miscarriage and
Sure.
and the moment where you thought, okay, I need to share about this. I need to maybe be vulnerable about this, and what was going on there in your mind?
Sure. Yeah. So my first pregnancy was smooth and uneventful. So I think that's an important detail to begin with, because it sort of shaped how I ended up feeling about my loss. But so, I got pregnant quickly and we traveled internationally. I mean, everything was fine. And I was, allowed to do anything throughout it. So it wasn't like I was high risk or anything. And I was really into having one kid and wasn't sure about the idea of taking on more responsibility, less flexibility with my work life and things like that. So expanding my family was something I needed to think long and hard about. I eventually turned a corner and sort of decided the more love, the better. This could get more interesting. Yes, more complicated as well. But I think I decided I was up for it. And so again, I got pregnant quickly, thankfully. And this pregnancy, though, was very different. And, you hear these old wives' tales like, okay, well, the sicker you are, the healthier it is, or you're not as sick with a boy, you're more sick with a girl, whatever. Who knows if any of that is rooted in anything real. But I don't know. I was worried. And with my son, I wasn't worried. And with my son, I was still here in my office sitting across from people who had gone through harrowing things and who had suffered the unimaginable. But for some reason, my anxiety did not get peaked during that time. And so 16 weeks into the second pregnancy, I went to my dermatologist's office for just a routine mole check and went to the bathroom and found blood. Thankfully, I am very close friends with my OBGYN. So another sort of unusual detail of my story, because I was able to text her and contact her straight away. So after the appointment, I went straight to her office. We checked the heartbeat. Everything looked perfect. The next day I decided to go to work because I was feeling up to it and my doctor said it was okay. And that evening, that Wednesday evening, I was driving home and I began to have what I now understand were contractions, Braxton Hicks. Like I had this sort of like tightening around my belly. Mm-hmm. And I knew that like at 4 months along, that just did not seem like a good sign. So desperate for information, I contacted my friend who's a midwife. She came over that night, checked the heartbeat again. Everything was fine. But the next day, that Thursday, I was home by myself. My son had gone off to preschool. My husband went to work, and the baby fell out. So I reached out to my OB, who walked me through what to do. So I had to literally like hold my baby between my legs, shuffling to get a pair of scissors. It's horrifying.
Yeah.
And then cut the umbilical cord, and then you hemorrhage until the placenta comes out. And the placenta typically doesn't come out until you get a procedure called a DNC. So I was hemorrhaging, and my husband hurried home. We brought the baby in a bag to my doctor's office so that they could test the fetus. And then basically I was hemorrhaging so much that I ended up having to have an unmedicated DNC. I mean, there's so many aspects of my story that, are so dramatic and so traumatic and so out of line with actually what I've heard for years and years in the context of my office. So, any listeners who may be pregnant or may have had a loss, I know that this is, just know that most miscarriages happen in the first trimester. Most miscarriages, you show up to your doctor and there's no heartbeat, or you do begin to spot. Most people aren't giving birth to a dead baby by themselves at home. So, like I said, I had already specialized in this, but I think clearly this changed my life forever. Yeah. And I started writing about sort of the pain and the politics around pregnancy and infant loss after my loss, but it really wasn't until my healthy daughter was born after this that I started writing about it so intensely and so personally. And I think it was because I couldn't be more vulnerable during that next pregnancy, because I was scared shitless on a day-to-day basis. And so I think until I was actually on the other side of pregnancy, knowing I would never be pregnant again, was when I could really like drop into this topic fully. Yeah. So that was just a fast forward. So I lost the pregnancy. We tested the fetus. I will let people buy the book to read that part, because that sort of goes in a different direction here. But my OB suggested that I wait 3 cycles, and I did get pregnant straight away again. And I don't recommend that to anybody. But I was 40 at that point, and time was not on our side. So I knew that it was a little bit of now or never. And it really did not allow me to process my grief in any real way. I mean, I was in therapy, of course. I was, writing was very helpful, but to show up at work every day, pregnant again, and worry every day about, checking for bleeding every day for 9 months was, it was horrible, just horrible.
Yeah.
So when we found out she was healthy, and after she was born, is when I was sort of able to dive into, the myriad ways that our lives are affected in the aftermath of loss. And so that I kind of became obsessed with the topic and really wanting to make a dent in changing the cultural conversation, or lack thereof, around it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And
it's a lot.
Yeah. So sorry for your loss of Olive.
Thank you.
Quick anecdote. My mother lost a child, Hannah, of, the doctors said pneumonia, I think. She was 2 months old.
Oh my goodness.
She would have been a younger sister to me, like 3 years younger, I think. And I think about her sometimes, and I just, it was like me, my sister, and then her, and then 2 younger brothers, so it was, she was in between, And it's,
Wait, so she went on to have 2 more children after she died?
That's
Wow.
correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think about, that, and I think about your story, and I think about just how much, trauma and grief that it just is so resonant in this world that we're just not aware of, that we're like, and we're not aware of it because we're not talking about it, we're not learning about it. Like I was pleasantly surprised, and not surprised really, but very grateful that your book really is it's a tome about grief in a lot of ways, you know.
Yeah.
And grief being this thing that is so weird and like a little monster that is unique to each of us, right?
It's true.
And it makes a tremendous amount of sense that you couldn't go there and really start grieving until your daughter, you know, Noah or Noe?
Yeah. Yeah. Noah. Yeah.
Noah was born, and that makes total sense. So I thank you, and I'm just grateful this book exists in the sense of opening our eyes to that grief and trauma that's so rich in that world. Yeah.
Thank you so much for reading it. I mean,
Yeah.
I have to say, like, when people have actually read it and talk about it, it really does something to me to hear reflection about it, you know, and especially I think, like, and you haven't been through this, but I can only imagine the amount of grief your mom was dealing with when you were a little boy. So that's something you can relate to. And maybe you had grief around losing your sister. Maybe you weren't aware of it. I don't know, but
I mean, I wrote a piece, and I might read it in the intro for this episode about Hannah, you know, a number of years ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, thinking about kind of like what would have been or what could have been, right? You know, being a big brother to a sister, you know, all that kind of stuff. But I want to explore a little bit like because really, you know, the macrocosm like of this show is like mental health awareness, right? And the stigma around mental health, right? And a lot of that is unpacked in empathy and vulnerability and talking about these things. I want to get into a little bit about like the stigma around pregnancy and like what a pregnancy should look like, quote unquote, right? And all these things, all these shoulds that we put on ourselves. There's so much richness. Can you talk a little bit about some of that, like the comparing culture that we do, the notion that pregnancy is this many trimesters, all of these like nuances of stigma that I wasn't aware of.
That's such a great way to put it, though. The you know, the sort of the ways that we see pregnancy as needing to be this many trimesters. It's so true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not validated unless you live through all of them. That's a great point. Yeah. So pregnancy is supposed to be something that every woman wants. She's supposed to want to be a mother, and she's probably expected to be. I mean, it sounds a little old school. I mean, maybe some subcultures see it differently at this point, but I still think that culture expects women to want that. And so what we see in movies and advertisements, and what we then, I think, drink in so much through those things, and then we project it out as we're walking down the street, is pregnancy is the glowing, beautiful woman.
Yeah.
Right. And I hear this a lot, even from my Instagram community and patients. It's sort of like it's so triggering after a loss to see pregnant women. But what I gently try to say, and you probably read this in the book, it's sort of like, but how do we know her journey? We don't know the path that she took to get here. She could be a surrogate. she could have just, she could have gone through years of IVF. She could definitely be what I was when I was pregnant with my son, naive and blissful and totally, clueless about the emotional ramifications of loss. That might be. But since 1 in 4 pregnancies end in miscarriage, it's way more likely that, so many people around us have struggled.
Yeah.
And 1 in 8 people deal with fertility issues, and 1 in 160 deal with stillbirth. And then, of course, there's the statistic around terminating for medical reasons, which they don't have the numbers for because there's so much shame in that for so many people, and stigma. So we're supposed to glow and we're supposed to love the ride and we're supposed to work at the same time and we're, all of that. But, and I understand why. So a lot of people say, it should be integrated. And I agree. It should be more integrated into the cultural conversation that not all pregnancies last. That's totally true. And my kids know that already. And I'm glad I'm doing that at home. But we also don't want to scare people. I mean, I don't know that it's the doctor's job to say, just FYI, 1 in 4 pregnancies end, when you first find out you're pregnant. I don't think you want to hear that.
Yeah.
We need to figure out a better way in that kind of acknowledges the excitement, but also acknowledges the reality, which is pregnancy loss is a normal outcome of pregnancy. It doesn't mean it's great. It doesn't mean we shouldn't have a lot of feelings about it, but it's usually a chromosomal issue. And it's not a fault of the woman's, which is a whole other thing we can get into if you'd like. But if we were to talk more about the fact that this is normal, I don't think people would turn it in on themselves.
I agree. I think it's like representation in anything, right?
Exactly. Yes.
For a time, maybe it feels weird. Maybe it feels uncomfortable. Maybe it's stirring emotions in us that we haven't felt before. But we can do hard things as humans. We are resilient, right?
Yes.
Having the conversations will only allow us to see the good and the bad, or we don't even want to use those binary terms.
That's right.
The joy and the light, the dark, it's all the human experience. It's like, I feel like that is the lens we need to look at the world in every capacity. Is like, these are the possibilities. These are the brights and the darks. These are the ups and the downs. And that's what the beauty of humanity is.
I couldn't agree more. And how great would it be if we, within society though, had these sort of like, pillows that would catch us when we fall into one of those buckets or when we become one of those statistics. So if it's a mental health struggle or a pregnancy loss or whatever, so that we not only knew like, okay, I'm not alone, but you feel not alone. I think that would upend this sort of like all the stigma. Cause it's like, yeah, I'm just another person who went through this and grief is unique. But at least we know that other people, unique to all of us, but at least we would know that we weren't alone in that,
Yeah. I mean, I think those pillows can be your book. It can be the campaign. It could be, podcasts like this or other wonderful, Modern Loss is a wonderful community, right? Like there are pockets of that safety in the pillows out there. I think the challenge is sometimes individual initially, right? Like it's like getting to the point where we can allow ourselves to feel seen in our hurt and our pain, and how was that for you initially? Because you said, it obviously took some time after your daughter was born, Noah, and like how was it hard? Like, because I know for me, like when I first started like openly talking about my depression and my anorexia, there were years of just like personal writing I had to do before I can put it out into the world, you know?
It's interesting because as a psychologist, I really had to think through, what are the potential ramifications of sharing something so personal. But I think that miscarriage feels very different than depression because in a way one could argue this happened to me. So I didn't feel like it was as revealing, I guess. And I didn't think I did anything, not that hopefully you don't think you did anything either, but like the research shows that a majority of women are blaming themselves and that they feel a sense of guilt. And I didn't relate to any of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think given that, I that's why I wanted to kind of like step out and just say like, okay, here are the gory details of my story. And I felt really lost after my loss. Like just, it was the wonky hormones. It was the breast milk coming in. It was all of it. And the comments that came to me from people around me, mostly about how quote unquote good I looked after my loss, which I thought was stunning, that people were commenting on my body because I lost, like the weight just fell off. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I felt like it was a responsibility to myself and to my loss and to all these women that sit in my office and the women I'll never meet around the world,
Yeah. Yeah. And you're,
there.
yeah. And in your career as a therapist, and you're hearing these stories and you're seeing, firsthand, like that shame, you're seeing like the layers of that stuff that we need, you need to get out there. And I'm grateful that you did. And you wrote this book because, like, for instance, you said 1 in 4 pregnancies end up in miscarriage. Like, that's a astounding statistic. Like, I had no idea.
Right.
And another piece of that you said that is astonishing to me is, like, I think I had this notion, and I don't know where I picked it up, but you speak on it in the book about, it's basically like a behavioral thing that leads to miscarriage as opposed to a genetic thing. Is it genetics or hormonal or whatever? But chromosomal.
Yes.
That's the word. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, this notion that like, it's like behavior, and like, no wonder like there's some self-blame in that when it happens, so just like that fact alone is very enlightening.
But why is it that people would blame themselves for something over which they have no control?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, it's our culture. It's American individualism. It's patriarchy. It's misogyny. Yes. It's, you said it before. It's like women have to be these glowing orbs. They have to work. They have to be, Diane Keaton and baby boom. They have to be, right. They have to be these like pillars of strength and, do all these things. And like, it's just not true, and yet there's so much. Even if we don't like tell ourselves outwardly, I think there's still so much sinewy, like back in our minds, like unconscious stuff that still speaks to these untruths, that we still need to explore, to unpack and unlearn. It exists in all of us.
Yes. And I think those things get like tickled at when you're feeling especially alone or isolated or alienated, right?
Yeah.
Don't you think that stuff gets stimulated then? Yeah.
I think so. So I want to talk a little bit about trauma and the experience of trauma. Like you alluded to in your book that we have a tendency as humans to want to swiftly get back to quote unquote normalcy, right?
Yes.
And I think about that in context of like, even these times we're living in, you know, in a global pandemic, right? Like this desire to like want what once was, right? We want our comforts. We want the things that bring us comfort. We want our routines. Like these are things that bring us comfort.
That's right.
And when it comes to trauma, like it's such a normal thing. It's such a human thing to want to just try to like bypass it, just bypass that pain. Can you talk like as, you know, personally or as a therapist, however you want to take it, like just about why it's maybe more fruitful eventually to not do the bypassing and to allow ourselves to experience the trauma in whatever way we need?
Yeah. I think that it is natural and normal to try to stave it off.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's conscious. So I look back and it's not that I wanted to get everything necessarily back to normal, but I didn't want to fall. I didn't want to free fall. And I think that's what it felt like it was about to be. I mean, it definitely was. And so I like clawed at the walls to try not to slip, but I kept slipping. And I think not even once I realized, just like once it wasn't working and I let myself kind of sink, that is when I was able to understand what the fuck was going on. And not understand, but just kind of validate, like acknowledge the intensity and the profundity of the trauma.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was trying to like keep it together. And also, I mean, I was a mother, so I didn't want to fall apart fully in front of my son either. But one could argue that was even part of like an excuse that I held on to, you know, just in an attempt to not plummet. But yeah, I mean, the more we try to stave off the hard stuff, the longer it sticks around. I mean, I think that's like a very sort of oversimplified way of saying, feel what you feel, because the longer you try not to, the longer it sticks.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I've been thinking about it a lot. And I don't bring it up to like, for the listeners, I don't bring it up as like, if you are maybe holding on to something in that way, or develop tools to like maybe bypass some of that pain. Like as Jessica said, it's very human. And I've learned to like, and maybe you can speak to this too. I've learned to like see, you know, like for instance, in my life, like see that my tendency to shut down emotionally was a tool that I developed in childhood that helped me sort of overcome whatever those experiences were. They made me feel maybe safer at the time, and I can honor that survival mechanism and say, hey, buddy, you served me for a time. I value you, and maybe you don't serve me any longer, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the kind of thing, though, that turns into heavy drinking, as you called it, you know, on your Instagram page. You know, it's like we can see how these things can morph into potentially self-destructive ways that we're, you know, trying to get away from feelings or trying to deal with the grief or the trauma in adult life.
Yeah.
And so it's important for us to be honest with ourselves when we evaluate, you know, what am I actually feeling? And are the behaviors that I engage in, are they trying to keep me away from those feelings? And if they are, that's okay too, but just to acknowledge, like, what am I doing? What are these relationships with my surroundings and my behaviors? You know, what is it serving me?
Yeah. Yeah. curiosity. I mean, the more curiosity I think we have, the better. I mean, in everything. It's but it takes a humbling. It takes a willingness to look at the courage, for sure. Willingness to look at the apparatus of like life that we've been living in and how that informs us and maybe sort of keeps us from growing, and
totally.
And there's so much apparatus, as you know, religion,
yes,
gender, culture, all of it. Yeah.
And I think, the framing typically comes though directly from our childhood. So the way that we handle our own emotional lives. And if we learn that expressing feelings is not acceptable, then we got to figure that out as we get older, because it's a hard one.
Yeah.
And trying to bypass trauma, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
It pops up in other places.
It does. Yeah. Like you mentioned, maybe drinking. I mean, listeners know I've talked about this, the ACE, the adverse childhood experiences and how those relate to mental illness and substance abuse and all these things. Like that stuff is enlightening. Gosh.
For sure.
Have you read The Deepest Well?
No.
Oh man. It was written by Nadine Burke Harris, the Surgeon General of California. And it's all about the ACE studies and stuff. And I had to put it down because it was hard to read. It's like how trauma can and so clearly shape lives.
Yes.
Yeah, it's hard.
And brains. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to read that. I haven't read a book since I started writing mine.
That's understandable. It's understandable.
It's time. Yeah.
It's time. Yeah. My wife and I and a few close friends in our pod have been every Sunday doing a reading hour where we get together and even our kids, not our kids, our friends' kids will sit down for a couple of hours and we just read our books in our backyard
Wonderful.
And have tea.
I love
and
that.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
That's such a good ritual. I love it.
Yeah. It's been great. There is a quote in your book that there's a number of quotes, but I'll just read one that I shared with you via Instagram that I just think is so profound and true and just speaks to, I think, why I do what I do. I think why you do what you do. And the quote is this: "We've become accustomed to living parallel to one another, oblivious of the pain we're all trying to overcome." And, like that's depressing. That makes my heart break. And it also gives me hope. And by that, I mean, I think we all have the capacity innately, and maybe not innately, maybe we need to work on it, but we have the capacity to show up for others, to see others in the way that they need to be seen, to add, you said before, to add the context of like, hey, maybe this person is dealing with something. We don't know, right? To not go into any situation with preconception or prejudgment and just show up as humans face to face. And I think that's the greatest gift we can give one another.
I couldn't agree more. Are you working on creating a society that's like that?
That's my goal. I mean, that's what I want to do with the Feely Human. Yes, the Feely Human Collective. That's really the aim is to create more education and space like that. Yeah.
That's great.
So your book is out March 9th. And today, as of this recording, is February, but listeners, it's March 8th for you. So make sure to buy I Had a Miscarriage. It's out everywhere. Definitely support your local bookshop if you can. Bookshop.org is a great website for that. But, support Jessica Zucker. She's put so much of her personal blood, sweat, and tears literally into this book. It's a beautiful book. Even if you haven't experienced a miscarriage, it's something that will make you better as a human and as a feely human in that. So go pick it up. Jessica, let's talk about empathy heroes. This is the part of the show we wrap up talking about the people in our lives, even characters from stories if we want, who are deeply empathetic, compassionate. I'm going to go first to give you a second to think about yours. My empathy hero this week is the author Beverly Daniel Tatum. She wrote a book that I'm listening to on audiobook right now. It's called Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria? And I wanted to read a quick quote from Beverly. It's this, quote, "It is important to understand that the system of I'm going to try that again. It is important to understand that the system of advantage is perpetuated when we do not acknowledge its existence."
Yes.
It's everything, right? I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about, right? We need to acknowledge these things. We need to talk about them. We need to get them out. And writing is a force of that, and talking and vulnerability and empathy and all that stuff. So, I'm enjoying the book, and Beverly Daniel Tatum is my empathy hero this week. How about you?
I love that.
Yeah.
Wow. I should have thought about this.
I should have prepped you. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think it's like, I keep trying to think of somebody else, but the person that keeps coming to mind is my daughter. She's 7 now. And I mean, I'm sure hopefully all parents feel this way about their children, but her level of vulnerability is enviable and so beautiful. This is like before they learn, or, before they interact with enough things in the world to help them see it in other ways as well. And the way that she can express love and connection is like, it's healing for me, actually, very, and just, it's shocking. This morning she was struggling with wanting to do something and she didn't have time. Online school was starting, and she just kind of like walked into me without even like throwing her arms around me, which she typically is like, big into hugging, but she just does this thing where she'll just walk and like lean into me. And that is enough for her. And we don't even have to say anything. And like, I put my arm around her, but she just leans there, and it's like, that's it. That just like set her day back to something, and mine. But I mean, she finds something so valuable in connecting like that. So that's the long version of my answer.
I could have.
I want to be her.
Yeah, I mean, it's so beautiful, and I that's another like area, just another apparatus, if you will, of like this idea that like, oh, kids are kids, they don't contain immense wisdom and beauty. And of course they do, They
do. They know more than we do.
Yeah.
We unlearn these things.
Exactly.
We put up walls and they don't. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I love that so much. Well, Jessica, where can the listeners connect with you? Obviously, order your book, I Had a Miscarriage, and all that loveliness.
Yes. And there's an audiobook as well, if you're more prone to listening. And I dared to narrate this thing on my own.
Ooh,
so I don't know if that was a good call or not, but I tried. And, but on Instagram, I'm at I Had a Miscarriage, and my website is drjessicazucker.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being a part of You Me Empathy, Jessica.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. And to you listeners, as I always say, I'm here, you're here, we're here together on this wayward, overwhelming, awe-inspiring, pale blue dot. We have each other. It's You Me Empathy.